Well, today we continue our Women's Vote series with the minority women's vote. In 1920, the 19th Amendment legally guaranteed women the right to vote, but for women of color, it wasn't until years later that they would be able to have their voices heard. And now we fast forward almost 100 years, and the minority women are becoming one of the fastest growing voting blocs in the nation. We'll discuss all this. Let's bring in our company, Florida congressional candidate Anna Paulina Luna and Maryland congressional candidate Kim Klacik. Ladies, welcome back to the show. So excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, Anna, I'm going to start with you here with Latino Vote. It is the largest minority voting bloc. Trump actually did decent with it in 2016 at 28%. That's gone up to 34%, polls show us. That's a 6% increase, which is impressive in and of itself. But, you know, with all that he has done for minority groups, why don't you think it's larger, and who is that 6%? Do you think that's predominantly women, or is that predominantly men who he's made that ground with?
I think that that's probably both. I will say that the reason why I got politically involved and what I realized in 2016 is that the Democrat Party was using what was happening at the border in previous policies with the Obama administration to really target the Hispanic American voting bloc, specifically those of Mexican American descent. We know that according to pewhispanic.org, that the largest voting minority in the country are Hispanic Americans, specifically of Mexican descent. And what they were doing is using the whole border and immigration debate as a means of targeting and suppressing Hispanic voting and support for the president. So they essentially used what was happening with the children in cages argument, meanwhile ignoring the human trafficking aspect. And that's why you're really seeing the entire Hispanic American demographic waking up to that. You're seeing people share the information on social media and saying, hey, we are for border security. We are for legal immigration. It doesn't mean you're xenophobic, but we do have an issue with human trafficking. And we're not going to allow our women and children to suffer this, even if the Democrats are telling us that that's the truth.
Interesting. And you know, Kim, same thing that we see with the black vote. Trump got 8% of it in 2016. Hillary Clinton got 88% of it. That's a large margin there. But he's made up ground as well. Interestingly enough, 6% polls show us he's up to 14%. Biden having 81% there. We know that predominantly black women vote strongly Democrat here. My question for you is, oftentimes we see that minorities vote Democratic. Do you think that women and men, for that fact, are afraid to come out and say that they're voting for Republican? Is there some, you know, that they're afraid to say that? Or is it that they don't know the information and it hasn't been communicated to them, like Anna Paulina Luna was saying about the Latino vote? Why isn't that higher?
I think it's both. I think, you know, we see right now he's at 14% with the black vote, but I think it's going to kick up to somewhere near 30%. Being an African American and supporting Trump is having like the worst stamp you can imagine on you. You know, you get called things like sellout, Uncle Tom, all sorts of things. But I can tell you, my team is knocking doors every single day. And we talk to people that say, you know what, I'm voting for President Trump and I'm voting for Kim Klacik because they're the only ones that are offering me a plan, a platform. We talk a lot about school choice. You know, in Baltimore, we have 39 high schools, and out of 39 of them, 13 of them have kids graduating not proficient in math. A lot of mothers and fathers are very upset with that. And these are in predominantly black neighborhoods. So now you see President Trump rolled out the Platinum Plan. I was lucky enough to be there in Atlanta when he did so, talking about investing $500 billion into these areas that were neglected by Democrats in so many inner cities across the country. People are noticing all that Trump is doing. And then he put on top of it, he tackled criminal justice reform. You know, he did the Prison Reform Act, he did the First Step Act, and people are looking at that across the country within the black community. So I think, again, we're going to see that number double for President Trump on November 3rd.
That would be great. You know, one of the interesting things is the Washington Post had an article, this was last year, but it proves the point before COVID. For the first time, most new working age hires in the U.S. are people of color. The article goes on to say that 5.2 million more people had jobs after 2016, and 4.5 million of those, rather, were minorities, most of those actually being women. Do you think that this resonates with women of color, that they are able to be successful in the economy, or has COVID kind of damaged that and what Trump was able to do the last 3 years?
Absolutely. I think people are really excited to reopen the economy nationally. And I can tell you that, I was raised by a young single mother. The first thing that she was ever concerned about was, could she take care of my sister, my brother, myself? And when you see really what's happening with the minority community, especially with the single moms, I mean, there's a reason why there's poverty. There's a reason why the Democrat Party does push minority women as a whole into the welfare system. It does contribute to incarceration rates. I mean, it's such a connected issue. And when you see that President Trump provided women with a means of really providing for their families, and we had the best economy known to U.S. history, I mean, people want that again. And it's really sad to see that the Democrat Party is using propaganda. They don't care about these families. They don't care about what's happening in the inner cities. And it's our responsibility, and I think Kim will say the same thing too. The reason why we're running is because we see this flaw and we want to fix it. We want to be a part of the change to save this country.
Yeah, and Kim, you mentioned it, this stigma that if that you don't want to be a minority voting for Republican. We think about Trump's message when it comes to law and order. We saw in the wake of George Floyd's death, everything that has happened. Is that message resonating with the Black community, this law and order message? Or do you feel like, are you hearing they're more on board with this defund the police and pull back on police funding?
Absolutely not. That's why I actually put that in my first campaign ad, where we went around and we talked to people in these communities about defunding the police. There was actually a poll done on it too. 81% of the Black community said they do not want to defund the police. They want more police presence on their streets. In these dangerous neighborhoods, again, in Baltimore City, you've got over 300 homicides per year. And we've seen the most since our riots in 2015. You've got over 700 shootings, over 400 carjackings. These are historical numbers. And, why would we ever take away any funding from those that are basically protecting us every single day? They're everyday heroes. On top of that, these are individuals that go out and protect people that they've never met before in the most dangerous situation. I don't understand why we would attack any police officer. I can't understand why we even got to this point. But I know the Black community definitely wants police presence. We are under a consent decree here in Baltimore City. It feels like it's one of the worst things that ever happened to us. But again, we need more police. And if Black Lives Matter really wants police officers to be better trained, you would add funding for better training. So it actually doesn't make any sense at all.
Yes, great point. Okay, I only have a few seconds left, but I got to ask this question to both of you. Biden has picked a minority woman, a Black woman, to be on his ticket. Is that going to be an issue with minorities on November 3rd? Anna, yes or no?
I think that she is definitely not a likable candidate, so I think it will be an issue for him.
Okay. Kim?
I think people know exactly about her record, and no one's going for it. We understand who she is and what she stands for.
All right, ladies, it's so great to have you. Thank you for giving us insight into the minority women vote. I hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest growing cable news channel. We give you the real news you need. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Newsmax TV streams live on YouTube for free. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.